I was already sitting at the long table when the lawyer stopped talking. My brother's smile stayed in place, neat and practiced. Everyone else shifted in their chairs, waiting for me to react. The room felt smaller than it should have. My name was still hanging in the air, unfinished, like something that hadn't landed properly. I looked at the papers in front of me. I didn't touch them. My brother leaned closer and whispered that I was overthinking things. He said it softly, like advice, like concern. He said he had already taken care of everything and I just needed to sign so we could all move on. That was the disaster. Not the shouting, not a scene, just that quiet assumption that I would do what he wanted, because I always had. I nodded. I thanked him. I said I needed a moment. Inside, something shifted. I grew up being told I was the difficult one. Not because I argued, but because I noticed things. My brother was charming. He learned early how to make adults laugh, how to sound responsible without doing much. I learned how to listen. When our father was alive, he used to say my brother had leadership in his blood. He said I had patience. Everyone treated that like a compliment. I didn't understand until much later that patience was just another word for waiting your turn. The first betrayal didn't feel like betrayal at all. It felt like help. When my father got sick, my brother offered to manage his affairs. He said it made sense because he lived closer, because he had experience, because I was busy with my own life. I agreed, not because I didn't care, but because I trusted him. Family trust is the easiest thing to abuse. I visited on weekends. I noticed small changes. Papers moved, conversations cut short when I entered the room, my brother answering questions before my father could. I told myself I was imagining it. That was the humiliation phase, smiling while doubting your own instincts. Then came hope. My father asked me once, quietly, if everything was in order. I told him yes. I told him my brother was handling it. My brother stood behind me when I said it. His hand rested on my shoulder. Heavy, familiar. I didn't see his face, but I felt the pressure. After my father died, the house felt hollow. Grief makes people careless. It makes you cling to routines. My brother suggested we keep things simple. No drama, no delays. He said we should honor our father by staying united. I believed him again. The reading of the will was supposed to be straightforward. That's what my brother said. That's what everyone expected. The lawyer spoke in a steady voice as if the words were neutral. They weren't. Assets listed, accounts named, decisions already made. My brother inherited control of the family company. He inherited the house. I inherited a small sum that felt symbolic, almost apologetic. I didn't react. I thanked the lawyer. I hugged my brother. He whispered that he'd make sure I was taken care of. His voice was warm. His smile didn't reach his eyes. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, because I was confused. Confusion is dangerous when it lasts too long. I gave myself 1 week to sit with it, 1 week to replay conversations, to remember details I had ignored. By the end of that week, confusion hardened into clarity. My brother hadn't stolen from me suddenly. He had been doing it slowly, for years. I didn't confront him. That would have been useless. He was proud of his ability to talk his way out of things. He believed words were his strongest weapon. I let him keep believing that. I started by asking questions, small ones, casual ones. I asked about timelines, about decisions my father had supposedly made. My brother answered easily at first, then with irritation, then with rehearsed patience. That was my signal. I began my silent observation phase. I requested copies of documents, framing it as closure. I visited old contacts under the excuse of nostalgia. I listened more than I spoke. People fill silence when they think you agree with them. What I found wasn't dramatic. It was worse. Inconsistencies, missing signatures, decisions made when my father was already too ill to understand them. Authority my brother claimed that wasn't fully his. Hidden leverage isn't always a secret. Sometimes it's a detail no one thinks you'll check. I kept everything to myself. I organized, I cross-referenced, I waited. My brother grew comfortable. He invited me to dinners. He talked about expanding the business. He spoke about legacy. He never once asked how I was doing. He assumed my silence meant acceptance. That was his mistake. The second betrayal came when he tried to erase me completely. He suggested I sign a final agreement that would simplify things. He said it would protect me from future liabilities. He framed it as kindness. I smiled. I told him I'd review it. That night, I realized how far he was willing to go, not just to take what he wanted, but to make sure I could never challenge him. He wasn't just confident, he was careless. I slowed everything down. I asked for time. I asked for clarifications. I pretended not to understand legal language he thought was obvious. Each delay made him more impatient. Each question made him more condescending. Power reveals itself when it thinks it's unchallenged. Somewhere in the middle of all this, I thought about you, whoever is listening. I thought about how many times people are told to stay quiet for the sake of peace. If this feels familiar, you already know why I'm telling it this way. The trap didn't close all at once. It tightened gradually. I let my brother finalize deals. I let him speak publicly about the future. I let him put his name on things that weren't fully secured. His pride did the work for me. Behind the scenes, I shared my findings with the right people. Not emotionally, precisely. I asked for reviews, for confirmations, for interpretations. I never accused. I just asked if everything was in order. It wasn't. The first call he received came on a Tuesday morning. He called me right after, laughing nervously. He said it was probably nothing, a routine inquiry. I told him that made sense. The second call came a week later. He didn't laugh that time. He asked me if I had spoken to anyone. I said no. I sounded genuinely surprised. By the third meeting, his confidence was cracking. He still tried to dominate conversations. He still leaned back in his chair like he owned the room, but his voice tightened when details came up. I wasn't present when the full review began. I didn't need to be. My role was already complete. The revelation was calm, almost boring. That's how real consequences arrive. Documents were compared, dates questioned, authority challenged. The story my brother had been telling didn't collapse in one moment. It unraveled. People who had admired him started distancing themselves, not out of loyalty to me, but out of self-preservation. Pride isolates faster than anger ever could. The aftermath took months. Control shifted, decisions were reversed, access was restricted. My brother tried to call me several times. I didn't answer at first. When I finally did, he didn't accuse me, he asked how I had done it. I told him the truth. "You assumed I wasn't paying attention," I said. "You assumed patience meant weakness." He was quiet for a long time. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Dominance isn't loud, it's stable. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. Relationships don't heal just because power balances. But something fundamental changed. I stopped shrinking in rooms where my name was spoken. The last time I saw my brother, he looked smaller, not physically, internally. The certainty that had carried him was gone. He nodded at me like a stranger. I walked away without looking back. If there's one lesson I carry forward, it's this. Betrayal thrives on assumptions. Control belongs to those who let others underestimate them. And this story doesn't end here, because once you learn how silence works, you start hearing everything differently.